Hey, Mark, welcome to the Hubscale Podcast. How's it going?
It's going very well. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you on the show. How are things up in Seattle right now?
Well, we're in the midst of the World Cup, so I'm enjoying it. The energy in the city's fun, and it's fun to see posts on social media from people all over the world discovering Seattle in summer. And we might have some new residents after this kind of a commercial for the city. So it's a good time, and we're having a good time here.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys are doing okay. You've got, I think, Bosnia tomorrow. We over in England. We've got Congo tomorrow. So, yeah, interested to see where we'll end up by the time this podcast airs.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm going to just sort of assume that there's a U.S. dominant game, and everybody's in a great mood after this match.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. But no, please introduce yourself and talk to us about, I guess, how you got to CRO today of SecureAuth, and yeah, give us an overview of your background.
Yeah, so I've been in core infrastructure for about 15 years, and I like to think of my primary experience being in 5 year chunks, or roughly 5 year chunks. The first was all around open source implementation of private cloud. So this was Ruby on Rails and OpenStack on KVM on Supermicro hardware, and so it's private cloud as a service. And this was in the early 2010s, right? And that business was sold to lots of fintechs and healthcare companies and folks that wanted a level of isolation and compliance and control. The ultimate company that we built, we sold to IBM, and then I functioned as an overlay for that product category in the global IBM go-to-market team. The next company I worked for was a company called Heptio, founded by two of the three creators of Kubernetes. And so we were, again, trying to help put guardrails around this open source project as container orchestration became an imperative in major enterprises. So we were working with kind of Fortune 50 scale customers, as well as some smaller, but very significant pools of infrastructure. And we grew that, sold it to VMware, and then I ran a global sales team at VMware for a few years before moving to identity, which I view as a natural extension of core infrastructure because it's in the critical path of every revenue generating function in the company. So I was in a customer identity role as CRO at another SIAM company for the last 4 years, and we grew dramatically. And then I found myself coming to SecureAuth here just a couple of months ago. And I'm happy to share a little bit about what appealed to me in SecureAuth, but there's definitely some learnings that come from that critical path infrastructure background.
Yeah, no, really interesting. So, what led you to CRO role of SecureAuth then?
Yeah, so I've really liked to stay aligned to critical functions, and I think of products as concentric circles, right? Core infrastructure, core networking, identity layer, things that are in the critical path. If it's broken, the customer's dead in the water. That has been my sweet spot. In contrast, you have things like a monitoring tool, which is very helpful, and you are blind if it goes down, but functionally your customers may never know, right? So I like to be in that sort of most critical category, and I'm willing to speak about it in a very technical way with most of my customers and sit on the same side of the table as them to solve the business problem that brought them into the conversation in the first place. And I think that has naturally progressed as we've gone to bigger and bigger deals. I've started to run larger teams. Then I had the sales engineering team. Then I had the marketing team. Then I had customer success. And the sort of broader customer life cycle in a critical function was a kind of natural progression for me because I wanted to be an extension of our customers' team. So that was my journey to be CRO. When it comes to SecureAuth specifically, I just looked at the flexibility of the deployment model, right? Not many people in the industry actually have the ability to run locally or in a hosted model or in a hybrid model or in an air-gapped model. And SecureAuth can do that across their entire portfolio. And we have a first-class workforce product, a customer identity product, a B2B product, and an agentic identity product, as well as a risk authority layer that gives you context across all those pieces. And I just looked at it and thought, my goodness, this is a really wide problem statement and a very holistic approach to the problem that nobody else in the market can match. And I really wanted to represent this problem statement in a moment when I think that identity layers are collapsing.
So for anyone new to you guys at SecureAuth, in really simple terms, what is it that you do? What is it that you're solving within the enterprise?
Yeah, we're an identity security company, and that is an overused term these days. But identity security means that we help human identities, we help monitor activity in your organization as well as agentic identity, and give you sort of continuous verification of an authority to act. So there's lots behind that, but basically identity security, and we view ourselves as a cybersecurity firm that grew up and has our core competency in the identity layer.
Hmm. It's become a massive topic, a huge topic. I mean, there's been so much M&A activity in identity. It's crazy. Why do you think identity has become that new frontline in cyber, should we say?
I think it's changed, right? You think of a human verification or authentication event. Yeah, you are Nathan, and I'm going to verify you are Nathan. That it can no longer be trusted because with the emergence of AI and this sort of delegated free will kind of concept where Nathan can spin up an AI tool that's sanctioned or unsanctioned and hand your credentials to that tool. And maybe it's all in good faith and you're attempting to run a report that is a normal business action. But the way that the AI agent will access any and all data it has access to come up with an answer totally removes the human friction or the human judgment in every action. And the volume of those users that are accessing Nathan's credentials might exponentially explode, right? It might rise dramatically. So what we're seeing is this moment when these guardrails that were built around human level authentication and them being tested and used in a way that is not consistent with normal human friction. And so that creates a security problem. It also creates an opportunity, but it definitely creates a moment that is often circumventing the controls in place in enterprises.
Mm, mm. And you guys have been around for best part of 20 years now. How have you evolved from protecting people, protecting users to actually protecting AI?
Yeah, so I think it's critical to say that we don't actually view ourselves as leaving the human identity space at all. We don't think that's going anywhere. I mean, to use a simple analogy, mainframes are still in use in production at many of the largest enterprises in the world, and they're a technology that was really came to prominence in the 80s. And we believe the human identity, workforce identity, as well as customer identity, and the more complex abstractions of B2B identity tied to the human level authentication is critical. It's going to maintain, it's going to stay there. You just also have to deal with the delegated agent that any one of these humans is creating to run a discrete task. And sometimes they're created by teams. So I look at this and say, okay, no longer can you say, okay, this is a workforce identity problem or a customer identity problem or a non-human identity problem. They're becoming blended very quickly. And you can't hope to solve the non-human identity problem in full without deep contextual awareness and ownership of the rest of the identity layer. Otherwise, you're missing big chunks of the picture. So we view this less as an evolution from an identity company to an agentic identity company. We view it as a new surface area in identity that is also present and has to be underpinned by the expertise of dealing with identities in some of the largest enterprises at scale.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think to your point there, you mentioned AI agents, they're suddenly everywhere. Why do they create a security problem that we may have never necessarily seen before?
Yeah, so some of the behavior patterns that have popped up that didn't previously exist between non-human identities and human identities. I'll give you two customer examples that recently were brought up in real life in SecureAuth. One of which was of a capacity planning effort where somebody was looking at the financial expenditures of a company and started querying about where money was going, what equity compensation looked like, how to plan for the growth and forecasting of the company. And some of the results that were contained in that were actually legally protected evidence from a CEO's departure the previous year. So it was a severance pay, it was equity and cap table implications. It was things that were legally protected that fundamentally are no longer something you're supposed to be able to have access to. Nathan would know this. An AI agent would not know this. And what's remarkable about this change is that the human friction is removed and the pace of change is really accelerating, right? Another example was an executive in a fintech started building workforce capacity planning and forecasting the load that his team could run. And he had access to HR data, and the agent therefore had access to HR data. And the agent started forecasting the women in the company who were pregnant or who might become pregnant, which is obviously something you cannot do, right? This is a massive HR violation, and appropriate steps were taken. They didn't use this data. It was a problem, but the removal of friction means that identities start behaving in ways you didn't used to be able to or you didn't have to expect previously. And same thing goes with editing and code changes, where you might edit a database or be limited by the speed at which you can type, but machine actions can start deleting entire tables, making changes at a wholesale pace to accomplish an objective without context of the rest of the business. So there's lots of opportunities to run into sharp corners in the dark that used to be really limited by the human friction that was in place.
Mm. I remember in our prep call, you mentioned, I forget the exact stat, maybe it was 80% plus of incidents that are happening due to AI agents or overprivileged agents. What's actually happening inside these organizations?
It's really a carbon copy of the role-based access control model. So when a person is working in a company, they're assigned a set of privileges and credentials and user identities that have certain access. And when they start creating a delegated agent or an agent who is assigned a task and they share their credentials, that agent has the same credentials they do, even if the task that agent is given is much more narrow or specific. So you have this inherited large scope that relied on human judgment and the sort of wide range execution that a human was expected to deliver, and then an agent with a much narrower scope that has inherited this full effort. So that gives an opportunity for rogue agent behavior, for an agent that gets compromised via maybe prompt injection to take action that was never intended.
Why should business leaders really care about those rogue agents or shadow agents, as you call them?
Mostly because they are a massive risk, right? It doesn't matter who's taking action. If you have PII exposed or you have the critical IP of your business exposed, it's a problem for you. You are on the hook from a liability perspective if personally identifying information of your customers gets out, or your employees, or even abandoned projects, or there's massive business risk to this ticking time bomb that exists in your business. And you may not have experienced the issue yet, but creating this opportunity to circumvent your controls and your data loss prevention controls is a big problem. And it's a question of when, not if, the old security posture will be compromised and will fail, and how brutal the issue will become. And more importantly, I think every CISO is in a position of being the department of no way too often. And our whole mission is to help the CISO's office put guardrails in place and say, yes, absolutely, you can use AI, you can use these tools, you can run fast, you can increase the pace at which we're solving problems for customers, and do so freely because we have a strong posture in place to do it. And when I looked at SecureAuth, there was no other company on the market that had as complete and production ready of an identity solution for all identity types. And that was just a powerful and exciting differentiator.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the job of the CISO in the last 2 years, just because of the rise of agentic solutions and AI, has just got so much more stressful, so much more complicated. And yeah, as a result, everyone is talking about AI, agentic security. Where do you think the biggest gaps are within that?
I, I think I think the biggest gaps in a security posture are direct results of how fast the industry is moving, right? Even this week, the identity concepts in Anthropic have evolved, right? They released this ability for multiple users to interact with a single instance of Claude that had a single identity. And so far less could you rely on the idea that a Claude agent was spun up by one person and it had a unique identity to deal with certain tasks. One object was getting interacted by multiple people and getting differing, wider instructions and scope. And so all of a sudden, the one of the metrics that we look at to control and manage and monitor the behavior of every action taken in an enterprise has changed. And examples like that are happening everywhere. So CISOs used to be able to look at it and say, okay, there's a relatively static sort of defensive posture I can take. And now the pace of iteration at an infrastructure level, at a software level, and at an identity level are all way more complicated than they were 10 or 15 years ago. And you add AI on top of that, and then the opportunities for gaps in their armor or gaps in the zero trust policy have shown up everywhere. So I think that's the sentiment we're seeing in security leaders and people who are responsible for a compliant posture in enterprises.
Yeah, yeah. I think we could probably talk about AI security forever, Mark. So I want to lead the conversation back to SecureAuth's approach. There was a part that I read online about you guys that mentions that SecureAuth gives every AI agent its own cryptographic identity and then verifies every action, which is interesting. In really simple English, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so we call this continuous authority. So if you don't think about AI as its own category, I think about an agent being any actor taking an action in your enterprise. So there's the workforce, there's customers. You pay them money on the workforce side, they pay you money on the customer side. You might have some more complex sort of nested administrator model where there's different types of customers, but basically all the humans. And then you have agents that are all taking action. And we've really evolved to looking at a continuous verification of an authority to act. So you're checking every action, who is trying to take it, and do they have permission to take that action in real time? And the ability to do that across all identity types and do so at really, really blazing speed. So it's an imperceptible addition of lag for any enterprise is really critical. And that's tying back to all kinds of permissioning logic. And that posture just moves from the front door model of verification of you are who you say you are, and you get access to inside the house, to something where, okay, you want to walk into another room. You want to open a door within the house. You want to remove something from a cabinet. All of those are actions that are being verified in real time, and we're not leaving massively overprivileged actors in any one of the identity layers. Does that help
Yeah,
answer the question around the scope around that?
yes. Yeah, you mentioned that continuous authority instead of logging in. Why does that matter in this new AI world?
Well, I think most massive enterprises have some level of push toward passwordless because it's inherently phishing resistant, right? You're removing the idea of a password being an unlocking gate for a breached identity. So going to passwordless, going to biometrics, going to some level of verification that is beyond username and password that can just be read in plain English or taken in a data breach. And AI agents actually having a UUID or some very, very downscoped token for a discrete task is critical. And so what we've done is actually create an identity broker in this continuous authority or this agent authority product so that along with every other human identity, you have a way to hold the actual keys for any asset they're getting access, or this agent is getting access to, and maintain a downscoped continuous verification of an authority to act model for every identity type.
Mm, mm. Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. I'm going to challenge you. What is the biggest risk that worries you today or in the future, even with SecureAuth's approach?
Yeah, I think it's simply the pace of change. Like we did not expect, and I don't think anybody really expected the level of sophistication and evolution of AI as it has happened in the last 18 months or so. It has certainly become more available and more adopted across every vertical, whether you like it or not. So the risk to our business, in my opinion, is some paradigm shift in how you get access to data, right? I think direct connect MCP connections for like somebody who brought their own LLM tool that goes around all the controls is a risk. And if you don't limit that at an enterprise layer, you're creating an opportunity for people to bring their own tool. And if you don't shut that down, it will happen. I mean, people are starting to use AI every day across every function, and that's going to create a risk posture in every business that is just different than we've experienced. So I'm a little worried about how we keep up with that zero trust posture and architecture if if there's some massive change in how we address and access information and share it. But based on what I know about the business, I think we're on the right track, and I think we again are really leading the charge in the industry.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's crazy the speed of change I feel over the last couple of years in comparison with maybe the couple of years before that, since the introduction of AI or the increased usage of AI and agents. So yeah, I'm totally on board with you there, Mark. Where do you want to take SecureAuth then over the next year, 2 years, or even longer, 5 years potentially?
Yeah, so let's take the shortest time horizon on that list first, right? Over the next year, I want to have a couple dozen public reference examples of how we're securing non-human identity and human identity across more than one identity type. Because I think that collapse in the industry, where there's no longer a workforce vendor, there's no longer a SIAM vendor, there's no longer a B2B vendor, there's no longer just a non-human identity vendor. I think those have to collapse because you can't hope to solve one of those in full without awareness of the parallel identity types. And we have to own that narrative and own that position as a holistic identity security vendor. And as I said, I have a lot of confidence in our technical approach to do it, but there's a little bit of market education that has to happen. So what I want to do in this near term is get public references around how we're doing it today. And we are doing this today in production with several customers already across multiple identity types. But I want to get public attestation out there, and I want to help continue educating the market that this is possible. You are able to secure the human workforce and make sure you're able to give a green light to people in your business to use the non-human data plane, and that'll be very fun to really lead forward.
Yeah, and then in the horizon, a little bit further than that, once you've hopefully achieved those goals, what's the longer term plans?
Yeah, the longer term plans for me, it's really accelerating growth, right? We're a very large and mature company as it is, right? We have hundreds and hundreds of customers. We have quite a significant revenue profile, and we're in use at one of the largest banks in the world, a top couple healthcare company in the world. We have individual customers with 30 million monthly active users, right? We have a very significant user population, and we're inherently profitable today. Now, that doesn't mean we're done and we're moving toward incremental growth. I want to change the growth curve where we are accelerating and capturing this and sort of leading the messaging in the market where it's no longer an individual identity play. You're talking about a holistic identity play. And I think if we do that right, there's no reason this business couldn't get quite large.
Really interested to follow the journey anyway over the next 12, 24 months. And yeah, I'll have to invite you back on when you've achieved those goals, Mark. So yeah, it's been a pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here, and good luck to England in the World Cup.